All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSims DFS office hours. It is Tuesday, July 11th of 2023 here. Just had the MLB home run derby yesterday with Vlad Jr. taking it down. Got the MLB All-Star game today. Should be a fun one as always. And then looking ahead, we still got League of Legends going on. We still got Wimbledon. And then we have PGA teeing off on Thursday here. So it should be a fun couple of days here with no baseball, playing some of these more niche sports. But for those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew. I'm one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. It's a show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS related questions. Questions can come in via support. You can reach us at support@sabersim.com. Questions come in live in the YouTube chat, and questions also come in the office hours channel in our Discord server. If you're not in our Discord and want to join up, there is a link in the description below. Get access to all of our similar channels, get access to all of our individual sport channels where members of the community and other SaberSim employees are going back and forth, giving feedback on different strategies and just different thoughts about DFS strategy overall here. So great place to hang out, in my opinion here. But with that being said, going to get the app pulled up here. We have two questions to get started today. One of them in the office hours channel, one of them in the YouTube chat. So if anybody has any questions, now is a great time to get those in here. But we are just going to jump right in. First question from Hona Peanut said, in PGA, I've heard it's a good idea to condense your player pool to 30 to 40% of the field. When I run Sims for 150 max, it uses 100-ish golfers. What are your thoughts on how big your player pool should be for 150 max? So this isn't something I've particularly heard about myself here, but it's interesting to always do some type of, experiment, I guess is the right word here. So let me pull up my screen instead of just SaberSim here. So if you guys ever want to know how many golfers are in your pool, the way to check is go to download up here on the right. Then you're going to open this file. And then I'm just going to bring the file over. What you can do here, right, is just look at the first golfer here and then just go down, just take that column all the way down. And then let me remove the question. In the bottom corner here, if you guys can see it, it says count and it says 156. So what that tells me is that there are 156 golfers with a projection here, right? So the bottom golfer had a 0 projection and looks like he has been ruled out, probably withdrew or something like that. So right there, I can figure out how many golfers are in the field for this week. And then if I go back, I can just make a note of that really quickly. And then get SaberSim pulled back up. So then now when I go to run a build, first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to make 2 quick adjustments, 2 projections here to make my life a little bit easier. And then I am going to do a 150 max like we talked about. Usually these golf contests are anywhere from 10 to 50K is usually fine here. Just taking a peek at Sim Diversity. Sim Diversity is at 9. And then for this one, I'm going to run 5,000 lineups. Well, I'm going to run a little less than that just to save some time. I'm going to run 2,500. And then I'm going to build here, right? And then once we get into the post build, we can see, how many golfers are being used. And then we can look at those golfers from a couple of different perspectives, right? So one thing that I like to do is, projections are very important in golf. So we can just sort by projection and then see what is the lowest projected golfer that we're getting. How much of this golfer are we getting? How much pool exposure do we have to these particular golfers, right? So I like to let SaberSim give me the players that it wants, and then I get to determine, okay, am I actually comfortable with these plays or not? And then what I can do is if it's giving me, too many players below a certain threshold that I am not comfortable with, I can go back to the home screen, make some adjustments, add some filters, add rules if I need to, and then run a new build, right? So kind of just trying to get a feel for what SaberSim wants to do on this slate in this initial build. All right, build finished up, 150 lineups here. Right off the bat, we have 54 golfers in our pool with a min unique of 1 here, right? So this is actually, right about 30% of the field here, right, at 156 golfers. So it's about 52 golfers is 1/3 here. So we are right in that 30 to 40% range with 54 golfers here. So kind of falls right into that window that you talked about here. And this is without me knowing this, heuristic. This is just SaberSim in and of itself, giving me these lineups, right? So second thing that I want to do here is like, okay, I'm right within this range, but what is our lowest projected golfer, right? And the easiest way to do that, just looking at our top 150 lineups, is sort by projection descending here. And then we're just going to scroll down, and then we're just going to see where this last person comes in at. So it doesn't look like we have anybody below 45, nobody below 50. So our first golfer that we have exposure to, our lowest projected golfer, is projected for 51.91 points in one of our 150 lineups, projected ownership of less than 2%. And then this golfer shows up 3% in our pool lineups here. So out of our entire 2,500 lineups, this golfer is showing up about 3% of the time here. Frankly, I'm okay with this, right? Decent pool exposure at 3%. We're getting one lineup. I think it's okay. Basically like we're kind of taking a shot on this golfer. He showed up in very few sims here, but enough to warrant one lineup in the top 150. I'm okay with that, right? Similarly, the next lowest projected golfer at 52.73 in 2% of our 150 and 2% of our pool, right? So I think that, with some of the adjustments we made when we released Sim Diversity, this was previously named Sim Variance here, and it worked a little bit differently. So with the new, logic behind the Sim Diversity slider in the builder, I think that it does a great job of not giving you too many low projected plays and giving you them at a rate where they can, make an impact, but not sink your lineups here, right? So I'm okay with all these plays that I'm seeing down here at the bottom, and I wouldn't be too aggressive with removing any of them, etc. here. So I think this looks great. It falls right in your range. This can be a little bit higher, right? If you start increasing your min uniques here, I went from a min unique of 1 to a min unique of 2 here. That's taken me from lineup 150 down to lineup 225. I'm okay with that here, still in the top 10% of my pool overall. And I've increased my player pool from 54 golfers to 62 golfers, right? So getting a little wider with the golfer range here. So going back to your example, I would be really surprised to see 100 golfers being used, in a default build here. Not to say that it can't happen, but I just think that number is just really high here. So, maybe you had some type of rule set. Maybe you're doing some other stuff in the home screen. I don't know, maybe like using custom projections or custom ownership that kind of led to that here. So just looks a little bit different than my build here, but ultimately I think that SaberSim is doing a good job of curating the lowest projected golfers and then giving you them either one sparingly or two not at all here. So I'm seeing a lot of positive things from this default build here. And if you're seeing something different, maybe it's some type of rule filter, custom projection, custom ownership, etc. here. So just keep an eye out for those things. But if you have any more questions in relation to this question, just hit me back in the office hours channel and I'll be happy to keep it rolling. All right. Next question in the office hours channel from Scion Games. Question says, is there a way in large field MLB contests where I can just target 2 teams? I have tried this before, and at times I would get the error that my rules are too restrictive. What is the best way to tackle this? Good question here. So going to use Sunday's main slate as our example for this question here, since this was the last main slate that we had. And this was a 10-game main slate, so it should be, big enough to be relevant for all different slate types here. So let's say that, you want to target 2 teams, right? And what you want to say is something along the lines of, I want to use at least a So there's a couple of different ways to do this. I'm not sure exactly what way you're trying to do this. The first way that comes to me is, hey, I want one of these two teams to be my primary stack in each of my stacks, right? So I want to have at least a 4 stack in every lineup. And from those 4 stacks, I want to use one of these two teams, right? So the way to do that would be come into lineup rules, do a stack rule. It's going to be rule type stack, selection method basic. I'm going to say stack at least 4. And then I'm going to change my eligible teams here, right? So I'm just going to use the highest implied run total teams here. So I'm going to use Boston. Let's say Boston and Toronto. So what I want to say is, hey, I want to use Boston and Toronto as a 4 stack, and then let SaberSim figure out, other 2 stacks, one-offs, potentially 3 stacks here to fill up the rest of my lineup. So then what I would do is, under eligible teams, I would just make sure that the only 2 teams that I want are eligible for this rule. So that's Boston and Toronto. And then I'm going to hit save. And then now when I go to this rule, it's going to say stack at least 4 players from these 2 teams. And then when I run a build, it's going to be a 4 stack of Boston or a 4 stack of Toronto in every lineup. And then the key word here is at least. So this at least will allow for 5 stacks of those teams to be used here. So that's one way to write the rule. Different way that you might want to approach this is saying, no, I only want to use these 2 teams as stacks, and I want to use both of them as a stack in every lineup. I'm okay with SaberSim giving me different types of one-offs, right? So in that case, what I would do is I would probably write 2 rules here, and I'm going to assume you can write this a couple different ways, but I'm going to approach this from the standpoint that you want at least a 3 stack of both teams in every lineup. So then what I would do is I would say stack at least 3, and then the team is going to be Boston only. So I have 1 stack at least 3 with Boston, and then I'm going to have a second one stack at least 3, and then I'm going to remove everybody except Toronto. So then now when I write this rule, well, now I have 2 rules, right? They're technically both stack 3 players. And then just if you guys didn't know, if you guys create a rule that's like stack 4, we will auto give it a name. And then if you go in and change it to a different number, like stack 3, it's not going to update the name. So you just have to use the little pencil icon and manually update the name. So then now when I build lineups, every lineup is going to have at least a 3 stack of Boston and at least a 3 stack of Toronto. So then this way would give me, hey, I can have 5 3s with Boston and Toronto. I could have a 5-3 with Toronto as the 5 and Boston as the 3. I can have 4 4s. I can have 4 3 stacks. I could have 3 3 stacks. I can have 3 3 2 stacks, right? So then this will make sure that both teams are used, and let SaberSim fill out the rest of your lineup here. So a couple different ways to go about this, but I think some variation of these, either 1 rule or 2 rules in combination, will allow you to do this here. And using rules is always going to be better than using team stacks here or stack types or something along those lines. The rules, frankly, just work better in my troubleshooting experience and my playing experience here. So use the rules, use some variation of those rule types, and that should get you what you're looking for. All right. Question from Ryan in the one in the YouTube chat and then one in the Discord. In the YouTube chat, Ryan said, CSGO is back this week. Great time to use Will's model. 100%, right? And, if you guys aren't familiar with who Will is one of our data scientists on our models team. He's in charge of, being part of the group of people that take care of all of our models, build all of our new models. So Will, when he came onto the team, he brought his CSGO model with him, and it is a great model, and he's very successful with it. A lot of users in the community are very successful with it. If you guys are looking for strategy on CSGO, you can find that over on the YouTube channel. Just pull that up real quickly to show you guys. Go to playlists, and then go to Daily Fantasy Esports here. So we have How to Beat League of Legends and CSGO, and then we have some other League of Legends specific content here. So check these out. They might be a little older, but in my opinion, they are still relevant for DFS esports today. All right. And then Ryan's question in the Office Hours channel was, I've been playing 1 to 2% of my bankroll for MMA, golf, tennis, NASCAR, and treating it like NFL/NBA Showdown because of the variance and the edges. I think that's totally okay here. And one thing that really stands out to me, from this question is that NFL Showdown and NBA Showdown are both 6-player lineup formats here. And so is MMA, so is golf, so is tennis, and so is NASCAR, right? And the one thing that is very similar between most of these is that, duplication becomes important as you shrink the lineup down, right? So big MLB classic lineup is 10-player lineup. All of these other formats are 6-player lineups, right? So the less players you are using in your lineup, usually the more ownership is going to condense. Usually the more likely you are to be duplicated in your contest, right? So the only one that is really stands out differently for me is golf. And as the example that we did for the first question here is, there's 156 golfers in the field for this week. That's usually pretty normal for any week here. MMA is 30 fighters, NASCAR is 40 drivers. Tennis depends on the number of matches on the day, but that could be around 30 tennis players, right? So a lot smaller player pools for some of these other sports that you mentioned. So I think it's totally fine to treat some of these other sports that you're naming here like you would a NFL or NBA Showdown. So I think that approach is great. I think keeping your bankroll allocation a little bit smaller for some of these sports is also a good thing, especially as you are, kind of diving into them for the first time. I think a mistake that a lot of people make is like, hey, I'm playing 5% of my bankroll on MLB, but I've been playing MLB DFS for 3 years and I'm very in tune with it. I want to go try a new sport. Let me go put 5% of my bankroll on tennis. Like, I do not think that is a good strategy. So I think as a rule of thumb here, anytime you're trying a new sport, lower that bankroll allocation, right? I think 1 to 2% is great. That's even lower than, the 2.5%, which is the bottom end of our DFS profit plan contest selection framework there, right? That 2.5 to 5%. I think it's okay to go, hey, I'm going to go 1 to 2% until I kind of get a feel for this new sport and start to understand it more, start to understand more of, what it takes to win in this new DFS contest here, right? So I think that's great advice, Ryan, for anybody listening. All right. We are all caught up with questions at the moment here. If anybody has any questions that they want to get in, now is a great time to get any last questions in here. But while we wait, so I want to remind you guys, if you guys are not playing over on OwnersBox, I would highly recommend taking advantage of our DFS partnership with them. We were the first major optimizer to support OwnersBox contests. They are a smaller up-and-coming DFS site here. And at the moment, a lot of their contests are overlaying. You can find contests where they're paying you to play. Your $5 entry becomes worth $6 because not enough people enter the contest. Secondly, you can find no rate contests, reduced rate contests. The user base is generally softer than what you're going to find on DraftKings, FanDuel, or Yahoo. And when you sign up with and use promo code SABRE or SaberSim, one, you can get a $500 deposit bonus, and two, we will track your entry fees for you, and you can earn free months of SaberSim just by playing on the site and nothing else. Each time you hit one of our entry fee thresholds, we will reach out to you, let you know you have earned a free month of SaberSim here. If you cash in, we will reset your tracking to 0 and you will automatically start earning towards your next free month. There is no limit on the amount of credit that you can earn while this promotion lasts. So take advantage of it while you can here. All right, just a little feedback here. Sion Gaten said, thanks so much, Andrew. That helps so much. Keep up the great work. Thank you. I was happy I was able to understand your question correctly. It's sometimes hard to, take a question and know exactly what your process looks like here. So glad I was able to hit that one on the head for you or out of the park here for you. But until tomorrow, everybody, take care. Good luck in your contest. If you guys are thinking about DFS, playing DFS, any sport, doesn't matter. If you guys have a question, drop it in the Office Hours channel here. Let it sit there until tomorrow. Gets us a steady queue of questions to get started with for our next show. But until then, I will see you all. Thanks. Bye.